very first episode of Circle Back, the podcast where two guys that love video games get together and basically do a deep dive into a specific topic related to video games. I'm Dan LaMarca. As always, I'm joined by
Dan Dufrenoy. Hey, everybody.
And today, as a way of introducing ourselves to you guys, we decided to bring 10 of our favorite games each. We're basically going to go back and forth, talk about the games. Not only because we love them, but also, like I said, introduce ourselves to you, see what kind of games that we like. Kind of get a feel for what we like.
Absolutely tough because we could write, pages upon pages of favorite video games. We played video games for years. These are just the 10 games that really, who we are as gamers and kind of run the gamut of what,
And it's 10 of our favorite games. This is not necessarily our top 10 games of all time, but they're certainly games that we care about.
Right, and by no means we're saying that these are the 10 games of all time.
Yeah.
We're just sort of...
Some of our favorites.
Exactly.
So, also I'd like to preface it by saying we are in no way, shape, or form in the industry of video games. We're just two friends that really like them and like to talk about them. So,
definitely.
Dan, why don't you kick us off?
All right, I'm going to talk about a game that I know we both love very, very much, Super Metroid, 1994 Nintendo. I have countless things that I could say about this game. I just love everything. You're Samus, Samus's adventure on the planet Zebes, and just all the crazy crap that happens, while you're there. Huge landscape, very Ridley Scott alien, very isolated.
Very alien.
What I love most about this game is that it's such a big world, and it's very, very, very creepy and atmospheric with the music and everything, but how throughout the game you kind of have to backtrack and explore the world.
Yeah, this is where we get terms like Metroidvania.
Exactly.
Where, you're figuring out, why can't I get through that door? I don't understand. And then 2 hours later you'll get a weapon and you'll be like, oh.
Exactly, and it's cool because I feel like the biggest character in the game is actually the planet, because you just, through the entire game, you're finding the different levels, the different bosses there, and as you go along, this planet's sort of breathing and living with so much.
The character design, the art in it, the music is like iconic. You hear that music.
Exactly.
That's why when you go to Metroid Prime and you hear that the same noise, this brings me back.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely one of my favorites as well, Dan. Good choice.
I think it's a special game.
So, the first game I want to talk about is Bastion.
Okay.
Bastion is a game from 2011 by the guys at Supergiant. Bastion is basically like an isometric top-down... you want to call it almost like a brawler?
Yeah, it's kind of like a melee kind of...
Yeah, it has a thing where you choose your weapon. You're this guy... You don't really know what's going on. The world around you is like crumbling. But you have all these different choices of weapons. And what it really is about is finding a playstyle that you like, finding these new weapons, and you're basically rushing through, trying to get to the end. It's a really special game. The music in this game, the freaking art style is incredible.
Yeah, it's actually you that got me into that game. I remember when you first played it and you were just, Dan, this is a game that you got to try out. And I loved it just as much. It really was really, really good.
The guys at Supergiant just put out a new game this year called Pyre, and that is really up there.
Definitely one of the best games of the year, 100%.
Really, really up there. But Bastion, special place in my heart.
100%. I'm going to bring up next Final Fantasy VI. To me, the master of the JRPG. That game, from beginning to end, and I love Chrono Trigger, and I love all these games. But for me, Final Fantasy VI, when you think how it came out in 1994, these little sprites, and how each of these sprites, it's probably, of all the Final Fantasy games, one of the largest character selections, and how each character has their own personality, how you end up... I mean, there was times when I was playing that game where, little sprite like that, and I'm just like tearing up, some of the stories that these characters have, and you're just like, this is a video game, and it's making you...
But that's why Final Fantasy VI is great, is because the story is so good.
Yeah.
It has that classic JRPG combat system, the turn-based that everybody knows and loves, but it's, some people say Final Fantasy VII is the best Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy VII is good.
It's good. It's not Final Fantasy VI.
Final Fantasy VI.
And I think we like 6 more because it has a real story. It's not like a teenage angst story like Final Fantasy VII. No offense. But 6 is like a
No spiky
real
ears and
story.
zippers,
Yeah,
right?
no zippers. But yeah, and it has Kefka, and it has,
Of course.
one of the best villains of all time.
Yeah, 100%.
Kefka,
And
but
the music, Nobuo Uematsu, his music is just it's cinematic. And it's even the
very
beginning, even just the beginning, when you hear Terra's theme for the first time, and you're just there, the characters are marching in the Armortech suits, and you just hear that music, and it's snowing, and the credits show up. It's like, oh my god!
One of the great examples of abilities where you get all these abilities in the beginning, and then they take them away.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you're not gonna
Exactly.
use those.
Oh man.
But yeah, that's basically one of the great Square RPGs ever. Chrono Trigger's great too.
Love Chrono Trigger.
You could argue it, but
Chrono Trigger could have easily been there as well. But
it's up there, man.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so for my next one, I picked Day of the Tentacle. It was a computer LucasArts, basically classic adventure game from 1993, and this game is just super special. And I grew up playing it with my dad, so I have like a special, whatever with that. But the writing in it. This is like Tim Schafer's beginning of his career, and he is a really talented writer. Yeah. So it basically centers around. It's a sequel to Maniac Mansion, technically, but you don't need to know much about it going in. But it really is like these 3 people get stuck together, and there's these tentacle people that come in.
It's an evil tentacle.
It's an evil tentacle, and basically you're
exactly
jumping through time. You end up going back to like when they signed the Declaration of Independence. It's super silly, but the writing is just incredible. The jokes in it. It's one of the funniest games still to this day. I think one of the funniest games.
You think it's Tim Schafer's best?
In my opinion,
better than Grim Fandango, and
I think so, man. I also really like Broken Age quite a bit.
Okay,
but,
yeah.
I think this is his best personally.
Yeah. First,
and Full Throttle is a great freaking game. I freaking love that. I played it for the first time. It came out on PS4 remastered this year. Incredible.
Did we play it together? I think that was one that you showed me.
Maybe, yeah. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's next for you?
To move forward, I'm going to say Bioshock. Bioshock would be another game very, very special to me. I love games with atmosphere. Yeah. I love games where, great characters, but to me, the setting is also, like, same thing I was saying with Super Metroid. Like, to me, that planet is the greatest character. And Bioshock, that whole
Rapture is the game.
From the beginning to the end, you are just in a different environment, and it really takes you to this creepy place. And I was never crazy about first-person shooters. Never really, Halo didn't do much for me. Call of Duty never did much for me. Destiny didn't do much for me. But this had such a story. Mm-hmm. And not to get into the politics involved or just the whole...
Yeah, but just as a story, it's pretty freaking fantastic.
It's really, really cool
also,
and creepy.
Yeah, for better or for worse, it kind of... not invented, but proliferized the audio log system of storytelling, which in this game especially is super well done, because it's like you're going to this place where people used to live normal lives, and now there's just like blood everywhere, lights are out, you don't know what the hell is going on, but that's what's interesting about the game. And it has, again, we're talking about iconic villains. Like,
oh my gosh, you can't do
some of the twists and turns in this game. No spoilers for this one, but we might spoil some stuff later, just so you know.
Definitely.
But yeah, with the little sister system, the big daddies, like just a lot of iconic stuff.
Yeah.
Really, really good storytelling.
I just absolutely.
And as far as first-person shooters, you don't have to really play like a shooter. Like, you get these powers where you can like convert the big daddies to your side. You can electrify the ground, and it's like, people are talking about immersive sims today, like Dishonored and Prey, and like this is definitely in that lineage. But this really brought a lot of people into this genre. You know what I mean? I think it's just fantastic.
I just
game.
think,
from beginning to end, right when you come in, you get dropped into your
your plane crashes.
You get dropped into the water, and you just like it's surprising throughout. It's really, really.
And Ken Levine, he can do no wrong.
He's
special.
Dude.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. All right. I have next on my list Mega Man 2. So Mega Man 2, one of the games I grew up playing nonstop. Like I remember beating this game when I'm like 4 years old. I love Mega Man 2. I played pretty much all the Mega Man games. I like them quite a bit, but 2 is special for a number of reasons. I think boss design, awesome in 2. That freaking music, Wily's Castle, man.
Yeah, Wily's Castle.
Christ.
Airman's theme. Oh man.
Some of these, this is some of the most iconic music in games. But Mega Man 2, man, you just can't beat the way it feels. Gameplay, as far as gameplay is concerned, you can't beat Mega Man. The platforming, the shooting. It's an incredible game.
It's probably the smoothest Mega Man. I mean, some Mega Man, you just want to bash your head against the wall and just, this I feel like...
especially, Mega Man 1 is, like, way too hard. Yeah. And then Mega Man 3 is, like, adding complexity to it. I think Mega Man 2 is, like, the sweet spot where it has all the stuff you love about the Mega Man games without any filler and without wanting to kill yourself.
Yeah.
It's a really special game. It's definitely one of my favorites.
Definitely. All right, I'm very excited to talk about this next one. Mm-hmm. It's one that not a lot of people may have heard of. I'm going to talk about The Swapper. It was a 2013 game by Facepalm Games. Kind of in the Super Metroid vein. Mm-hmm. It's like a Ridley Scott kind of alien, sci-fi, isolated. You're in this...
Really interesting art design, too.
Very interesting. It's like
almost like claymation. Yeah. It's very cool.
And the gimmick of it is you'll be put in these rooms and you have to collect these orbs. And there's certain, platforms that you have to, let's just say there's 3 lights and you need to touch those 3 lights. How are you going to do that? Well, you have this machine called the Swapper where you can make clones of yourself. So let's just say you're in a room and, there's a switch on the ceiling and there's a switch, in the corner of the room. How am I going to do it?
Make some
clones
of
yourself. Exactly.
And what's cool is the clones move while you move.
Right.
So you have to... Like if you have a switch here and you're over here, you want the guy to stand on the switch, but you have to walk to the door. You put a clone back here, the right distance, so that when you walk, you get to the door right as he hits the switch.
Right.
It's really, really cool.
And it gets more complex as it goes along, where there's certain light waves that you can't swap through because you can. This is why I love this game, because you can swap your consciousness into these bodies, and in many situations you have to put these clones in danger or even kill them. And what I like about it is the implications that, throughout the game, does the ends justify the means? You're trying to escape this space station and you're creating all these clones of yourself.
And just killing them.
So
you're like, do
these
things
moral?
have anything in their brains, or are they just meat sacks?
But that's the thing. Are you doing the moral thing? Which one was actually you? It's that's sort
cool,
of
man.
like...
The Swapper is a really special game.
Yeah, it's got that philosophical kind of,
That's the kind of sci-fi we like.
Are you doing the right thing? Yeah, exactly. Very Blade Runner-esque.
Very Blade Runner.
Yeah.
So I love it, man.
I love it.
All right, next I have Shadow of the Colossus from 2005. This is a PS2 game by Team Ico. Shadow of the Colossus, and we're talking about... There's a running theme here, mood in games, right? The tone, the mood, the setting. This game is one of the most, eerie games to explore. When you, everyone knows the Colossus, the different Colossi have all these crazy platforming things to get to the top of them, to take them down. But when you're walking around this, desolate, barren land, you're like, what the hell am I doing here? You feel like you're out of place, right? It's like a giant's world, and you're walking around in it. It's weird. Big thing about Shadow of the Colossus that makes it interesting is these colossi that you're taking down aren't really doing anything wrong. They're not trying to destroy anything. They're just being themselves, living their lives, and you're running up to them and killing them. So the game definitely toys with that a little bit in its themes, but it's just a really special game.
And it's all boss fights. The game is
just boss fights. Boss fights is
nothing. Yeah.
It's you run through all the different colossi and that's it.
But that's the thing is, are you doing the right thing?
Yeah.
And that's why.
And it's interesting because there are certain points in the game. When I was a kid and I played it, when it came out, I was 13, 14, something like that. Didn't really think about it as much. When I replayed it when it came out on PS3 for the remasters, I'm thinking about it and sometimes I'm like, I just don't want to kill this guy. What is he doing?
They look at you with those eyes, and you're just
it's super,
they didn't do anything wrong.
Super well done because it's playing with what video games are, where it's are you just why are you just killing?
Right,
because you want to beat the game?
Told? Yeah,
it's really, really good. That game is something else.
So I feel like all the games we've talked about very heavy, very a
lot of dark, deep games.
Barbed wire, and I'm going to talk about kind of a more uplifting kind of I'm just having a great time kind of game, Fez. I love that game. An indie game 2012, Phil Fish of Polytron Corporation. It's such a great premise. I love 2D platformer, side scroller kind of things. And what's so cool about this is, in this game, you're collecting cubes, and the way that you acquire these cubes is you have to shift landscapes, and you can, let's just say you're on on a structure, and you have to get to another structure, but it's too far away. You can move you can move it laterally, you can move it horizontally.
Well, it's huge
and the landscape changes.
Yeah, it's all about perspective, this game, because it's like, if you're switching the world, you might be lining up a ladder that was normally going straight up, and now it's on an angle, and you didn't realize it was on an angle, and now you can get across. So it's a lot of... See, this is like a nice uplifting game. Like you said, it also breaks your brain.
It makes your head hurt.
It makes you want to smash your controller sometimes, because it's really complex. And, like you said, Phil Fish made this game. He's a really smart dude. Yeah. He just made Super Hexagon, or not Super Hexagon, Super Hypercube for PlayStation VR. I think I had you play that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Another brain-bending game where you're spinning the cube to make it fit through the wall. It's like he loves these perspective, brain-bending games.
Yeah.
And Fez, what's cool about it is you're switching perspective, and that's a great gimmick, great gameplay thing. But it goes places, man. This game has some really interesting I don't want to spoil anything, but it gets deep. It
really
man.
does. Yeah, it really does.
It kind of twists what looks like a nice little fun game into this crazy almost like an ARG
some of those areas.
Type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. I just
huge fan of
have
that game,
nothing bad to say about that game.
Next on my list is Naughty Dog's 2013 game, The Last of Us.
Back to the sad and depressing.
Back to the depression. Yeah, we love depressing games here. It basically is The Road, the game. If you ever read Cormac McCarthy's The Road.
So it's not too long ago.
It's super dark, super dour. You play as this guy named Joel who's... It's the very beginning of the game, so I don't mind spoiling it, but in the beginning, there's an outbreak. You're listening to the TV and the radio or whatever, and you hear about this outbreak, and basically... your family is killed, your daughter, your 11-year-old daughter, or whatever,
a lot of people die.
Killed.
Yeah.
It's a rough start, and then it jumps forward, and you're surviving in this now wasteland, post-apocalyptic world, and basically Joel runs into this girl Ellie, and he kind of becomes a father figure to her, and they go through this terrible world. Basically, this game is great because of its story, but it has story in the little details, right? So, you're doing stealth. There's humans that you're fighting, right? That are that want to kill you because everyone's fighting for resources. But you go to stealth kill a human being, and he's grasping, he's breathing, and it's that's such a little touch that it might get overlooked. But it's these little details is what kind of tells the story of how desperate these people are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just a really... And the way the plot goes through and the twists and turns, it's a very, very good game. One of the greatest.
But then again, it has spoilers.
Spoilers.
But at the end of the game, you sort of question.
Yeah.
Did I do the right thing? Did I do the wrong thing?
Right. Yeah, we can talk about it. Spoilers for The Last of Us if you haven't played it.
If you haven't played it, really play it.
But I'll tell you, at the very end. Ellie, basically, they find out that Ellie has the cure in her, the cure for this disease that's turning people into basically zombies. And so what they're doing is they go to a clinic to get this. They basically have to kill her to study, figure out what the cure is. Yeah. So Joel decides, even though Ellie wants to do it, Joel decides he's not going to go for that, and he decides to kill the doctors.
Kills everybody in the
hospital, saves Ellie, takes her out. She basically wakes up what the hell happened? And he basically turned out to be the bad guy,
But then
it's complex.
Then you think that's a daughter figure to him. Would you do that for your daughter?
Yeah.
It's just
But that's what's good about the game. It makes you think about these human situations of what are you taking as priority?
Right.
Like, are you saying, hey, let's try to save civilization like any altruistic person would? Or are you saying, hey, I really care about this person, I don't want them to die?
That's a tough question.
But when you look at how Joel went about it, maybe he didn't have to kill the doctor.
He kind of went kind of crazy.
Yeah. He went a little nuts, so maybe he plays a bad guy. End of the spoiler warning. Sorry about that, but we got to talk about it to tell you how great it is.
Yeah, definitely. Special game.
What's up next for you, bud?
My next game will be Earthbound, or Mother 2, as it's known in Japan. The game that got me into JRPGs.
Yep.
I played that game from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. I learned about grinding, and bottom line story is, you're this kid named Ness.
Yeah.
Classic American boy, small town suburbia.
You might know him from Super Smash Brothers if you don't know this game. Because...
Anyway, classic, American kid, lives in the suburbs, mom and dad, dog, and this alien crashes down, and he's just set off into this huge adventure.
Big journey.
Where he just has to, there's this villain named Gygus, who's going to destroy the world, and this small town kid, with the help of his friends, who he meets along the way, has to, save the world. But what's so cool about this game is that it doesn't take itself seriously, because you could take that premise, this kid's got to save the world. And, you could think of it as this sort of, oh man, he's growing and it's going to be dark and he's going to mature, but he grows and matures, but in a funny kind of...
the game stays whimsical, it stays
exactly. Some
funny.
Of the bosses are just silly.
The thing that makes it very unique is the way you can interact with enemies, right? Mm-hmm. Isn't that the big thing?
Well, exactly. It's kind of what Undertale, another great game that I know we both love, kind of took from. Some enemies you can kind of just, maneuver your way so that you don't have to hurt them or kill them. And
that is flipping JRPGs on its head. This game was super special for that reason. And everything, all those games, all those type of JRPGs, it's the same setup, end of the world, blah, 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 but it's done as almost like a comedy, lighthearted. Right. There's definitely dark parts.
Oh, 100%.
And it goes places. By the end, It's a fucking awesome story.
Yeah.
But I would say it really sets itself apart from the rest of them.
Exactly.
By being, you can interact with the enemies a certain way. And like you alluded to, Undertale came out just a couple years ago.
Right.
Totally played with that same idea and was a fantastic game.
Right.
Well.
I love. I don't want to. I think I will spoil. My favorite thing at the end was when you're fighting Gygus and you just spoilers, using all your energy, and then it ends where the way you beat him is all your friends start thinking about you and praying for you, and it's all these things. You're wait a second, this is how this is gonna end. I'm super stacked out with HP and stuff, and it doesn't matter. It was just a very very cool,
awesome ending.
Flipped RPGs on its head, and that's what got me into. Without Earthbound, I would have never played Final Fantasy VI. I never played Chrono Trigger. It really sort of...
it's definitely a seminal game.
Opened the doors for me.
Very good game. Next for me is Metal Gear Solid, the original. So, Hideo Kojima, everybody knows the name. This was where he kind of broke out. He made old Metal Gear without the Solid on the MSX, old games. Had just a little bit of the touches of the crazy story like this one had, but this game is special because Hideo Kojima loved action movies and he loved anime, and he said, let's put those two things together and make something unique. So he borrows a lot from pop culture, a lot, the character's name is Snake because of Snake Plissken from
Escape from New York.
Escape from New York. He loves all this stuff and he's unabashed about it, but he makes his own story and his own craziness. Metal Gear Solid... There are two things that I identify as being super important for video games. Number one is the boss fights are incredible and iconic. You've heard this a million times, but the Psycho Mantis.
Right, of course.
He takes control of your controller. He shuts off your TV. Back then, it would actually, I was a dumb kid. It might have actually tricked me. He turns down the volume. It's a fake screen where it turns the volume down or shuts your TV off. And so you get up and what's going on? Or he'll look and say oh, you like Castlevania, because he sees a save file on your memory card. It was very cool.
That's cool.
So boss fights are huge in that, and the other thing that's huge is just the cinematic nature of it. I remember playing it and being like, even as, a 7-year-old when this game came out, I was like, this is different than everything else. I've never played anything like this because it had cutscenes that were super directed. Like, it was really like taking movie cues. Like, a lot of like long shots, a lot of like drama, like real human relationships. For the time, if you go back, you might like be like, this is cheesy as hell. But it totally put games on the map that they can actually tell serious stories and adult stories. You know what I mean? I know you never played Metal Gear Solid.
It's the biggest dent in my armor.
You got to get to it.
Never played a Metal Gear game,
but that's why that one's special, and it is my favorite Metal Gear Solid game, and I think for good reason.
Wow, awesome! Very cool, very cool. Now I'm going to talk about a game near and dear to my heart and my sister's heart. Shout out to you, Noel. Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. I love the Zelda franchise. I love the Zelda franchise very, very much, and I love all the games. And it was a tough spot. Which is my favorite? The new one's incredible.
We can get into that in a minute. You give your spiel, and then we'll talk.
Majora's Mask is right after Ocarina of Time, and it follows the story of Ocarina of Time, where you're young Link.
It's one of the only Zelda games that is literally a continuation.
And you go to this world called Termina, and everything's fine. But what's cool about it, it's very Wizard of Oz, where all these characters that you interact with are kind of reflections of Ocarina of Time. But the gimmick is there's this giant moon who... a
creepy ass moon,
like the scariest moon ever.
As a child, it would terrify me.
And it's about to crash into destroy the world in 3 days, because this little guy named Skull Kid found this mask that possessed him, and the possessor is Majora's Mask, and Majora's Mask is causing this moon to move closer and closer.
Right.
And everything you do, you have to do within 3 days. And when 3 days runs up, you have to go back in time, and everything gets
that's basically
redone.
The gimmick of the game is you can rewind time, you can fast forward time. You're manipulating time throughout because you only have 3 days until the moon basically destroys the
exactly,
Earth.
exactly.
So it's like, hey, let's get this done. As a child, it was quite frustrating for me as a game because I was like, I don't know how to do this. And I played plenty of games when I was a kid, but I could not wrap my head around when to rewind it, what I'm doing. So it was tough. Going back and playing it when I was a little bit older, I definitely appreciate it. I love this game. For me, it's like number 4 or 5 on the Zelda list.
All right.
But I will say, it's a great game.
Yeah.
I think Ocarina it was so seminal for so many people because it was the first 3D, like it was really revolutionary in its time, right? So this being a continuation, a lot of people do love this game. I understand why it's great. I think Breath of the Wild is the best Zelda game ever made.
Well, definitely.
And I
that's
know
fair. That's very
it's early to say that. It only came out in March, but goddamn, that's a great game.
That's very
If you have not played
very fair.
You should play it.
But the reason why I think Majora's Mask is the best Zelda game is because what got me into Zelda game was I loved, because I grew up with Mario, the Zelda games had that sort of darker edge. And what I love about Majora's Mask is everything you do, you only have 3 days. And whatever you do, if you complete your task in 3 days, you get the mask, you get whatever you need. But then you rewind time, and everything resets.
Right.
So you still have the mask.
You keep what you have,
but everything is reset. And kind of that feeling of, not that I'm preaching some nihilistic philosophy, but like everything you do doesn't matter. It's just sort of futile. It's just
very cool, and I love the themes of that game. I'm not like a hater of that game. I love that game, but Zelda games are pretty up there.
I know.
Link to the Past, pretty
Link
good
to the Past
game.
is great.
Pretty good game.
I was even talking about putting Link's Awakening, because that's another one that you just messes with your head, and you're like, oh god.
Yeah. I like Majora's Mask. I'm glad it's on here. Maybe not my favorite, but I love it.
Fair.
All right, on to the next one. Mass Effect 1. My favorite Mass Effect. If you guys don't know what Mass Effect is, it's basically Star Wars meets Star Trek, right? So it's its own galaxy, its own universe. You know what I mean? It does such a good job of building. It's probably honestly one of the best fictional universes I've ever seen in a video. In not only a video game, in media in general, because it fleshes out all these different types of aliens, species, interactions between them. to give you the nuts and bolts of what kind of game it is, if you don't know, it's basically like it's like a party-based RPG, but it is highly focused on your interactions with your party members. Mm-hmm. So it's like you're getting these characters. You're basically like getting a band, a group together to try to take down this threat. Classic video game thing.
Right.
But depending on your choices, characters might think of you a different way. Characters might leave your party.
Sometimes they die.
Get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, no spoilers, but a party member may or may not try to kill another party member at a certain time if you don't do something right. But what's great about that game is the overarching story is really well done. And
space opera. It's a
space opera. It is. We love Star Wars. Here's a great Star Wars with a little bit of Star Trek, like a little headier stuff.
Right.
And it's just a really well done game. And games have come a long way since then. So you say your choices matter. We know they didn't matter that much in that game. Like there are specific things, like I said, a party member could die or whatever. But this is made by BioWare, the guys that made Knights of the Old Republic. Mm-hmm. So that was a huge story-based game.
They knew what they were doing when it comes to
They know what they're doing. Space. They're great. A lot of people say Mass Effect 2 is the best Mass Effect game.
That's more character-driven. I feel like that one's more...
I think you would agree with them, right?
I like 2.
I say 1 is better because it feels more like an RPG.
Okay.
2 is more of like an action game. It's like you have your party, but there's not as much like actual moment to moment. I like the way Mass Effect 1 plays.
I could take...
And I think the story is better, personally.
Yeah.
Mostly because it did it first. It introduced all these new things that we've never seen before. All these different species. Like, it totally created this awesome universe, and I love it for it.
I could take either or.
But I get what you're saying. 2 is great. 2 is basically... Each of your party members has their own, like...
story
mission, where you basically go do something for them and you learn more about them. There's a lot of cool stuff. Mass Effect 2 is incredible. That trilogy is one of my favorite trilogies. Well, probably the best trilogy ever.
Yeah.
But Mass Effect 1 to me always holds a special place.
Yeah.
I think it's the best one.
Definitely, man. Hard to argue with that. I know we're gonna argue about this one.
Uh-huh.
So, I love Castlevania games. Probably played every single one of them. Mm-hmm. My from first Castlevania, Symphony of the Night, to Lords of Shadow, my favorite of all time is Super Castlevania 4. 1991, Konami. The reason I love it, and listen, Symphony of the Night.
It's a great game.
Oh,
I'm not crapping on yours.
Symphony of the Night's my sister's favorite game. She loves Alucard. Really, Symphony of the Night's an amazing, amazing game. I love the Metroidvania.
Alucard backwards is Dracula.
But Castlevania 4, from beginning to end, I love the side scroller. I love the platformer. I just love. I love getting to use a whip. To me, that's just premise of the game. Super simple. Dracula's back. The vampire is killing people, and Simon Belmont is the only person that can stop him. So you go to Dracula's castle. Yep. And you fight, Frankenstein. You fight, all these
the classics.
All the classics. You got the, creatures and dragons.
It's a cool.
And
it does to the thing that's cool about the Castlevania games is a lot like what we talked about with Metroid, right? Where it's like it's a side scroller. It has good combat, and it has a lot of like different weapons you can use, different strategies. It's like a very good technical game. Mm-hmm. The first 4 Castlevanias are all great, but Symphony of the Night, man, come on.
I know that is the watershed moment. Yeah,
that is what that game did. It basically brought Castlevania to PS1 with the music, and it made it more Metroid-like, right?
Well, definitely. Well, that one you got to backtrack.
And I know there's different preferences, and I know you love 4, and 4 is a great game, but Symphony of the Night's the one, man.
Yeah, listen, I love Symphony of the Night.
I hear you.
As much as the next guy, I love the whole background.
You don't have to agree on everything.
I love the inverted castle, but for me, Castlevania 4, Simon Belmont. That guy's like calf muscles are just like, you know what I mean? Like he's just like trudging along, and you got that music playing, he's whipping things. Oh man,
he's alright. He's alright. And what I will say is, all the Castlevania games. Shout out to the Castlevania games for their wall meat.
Wall meat. That's
Hit a crack in the wall,
Yeah.
a giant ham hock comes out.
I wish it.
It's already made. It's already cooked. It's ready to go.
So Castlevania 4 would be my pick.
Castlevania 4, great game.
Symphony of the Night, close second.
All right, my next game is Dark Souls. And Dark Souls is my all-time favorite game that is not on a Super Nintendo. So I have a super crazy history with this game, and I'll tell you a little bit about it right now. I got it in 2011 when it came out. So everyone knows what Dark Souls is, but if you don't know, it's From Software made it. It's a 3D action game, but instead of like a Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, where you're just slashing, you're like doing button combos and all this crazy stuff. In Dark Souls, it's all about like deliberate attacks and deliberate movement, and you are very careful. You always try to only fight one guy at once. So like a lot of people came into this game, much like me when I first got it, came in, tried slashing these skeletons, and there were 2 of them. I'm like, oh, 2 skeletons. How many times have I beaten 2 skeletons in my life? So I went in slashing, sucked. Couldn't figure it out. Didn't understand the game. Finally banged my head against it for like 10 hours just to get through the Undead Burg. Got up to this bridge, right? Finally get past it. I beat this boss after so many tries. Man. Get to the bridge, start walking across. Dragon comes along, breathes fire, kills me instantly. And I had not saved my progress. Because you can't, unless you go to a bonfire.
Gotta love it.
So I literally, that day, went back to GameStop and traded it in. I was like, I hate this game. I was like, I don't like it. Traded it in. 2 years later, I'm like, it's always been like itching in my brain. I'm like, there's something I like about this, but I don't know what. So I bought it again, played it again, and totally fell in love with it.
Did you save your progress?
Into it. No, sorry. But I bought into it, the idea that it had. It was unlike anything I've ever played. And once you get into that game, man, once you get past a certain point, the things that I love about that game is, number one, the deliberate combat. It's incredible. I love that you have to think about you are always on your toes. There's traps everywhere. It's, to me, like it is a throwback to the NES era.
Yeah.
It's like super hard. You're going to bang your head against it forever.
Really, really
you figure
hard.
it out. You know, it's like as classic style as Mega Man or like the old Ninja Gaiden games.
Yeah.
It's like,
man, love Ninja Gaiden.
It takes a lot to get into it. The barrier to entry is tough. But what really is awesome about this game is the tone of it, the mood, like all these different bosses. Like the bosses are the thing. There are like, 20-something bosses in this game, and all of them are incredible. The designs are amazing. But what I specifically love about Dark Souls is it's like a clockwork world, right? So like the big thing, the big shtick is you have to get to a bonfire to save your progress. So there's bonfires spread out periodically through these different, but they're tough to get to, and they're purposefully surrounded by tough enemies nearby. So every time you sit down and save your progress, every single enemy respawns except for bosses, right? So you run through, you kill all these guys, you're like, oh, I did it! And then you go to save at the bonfire, and you come out, and you're like, they're all back.
Yeah.
I don't understand. So, but what they do is they create shortcuts throughout the game, because it's one giant world. And in a certain world, like at the starting level, the area you start in, like Undead Burg, you can see a place that you won't get to for 40 hours. Mm-hmm. You can literally see it. And it's blurry, and it's in the distance, and you're like, that can't be like a real place. That's just set dressing, but it's not. So they create shortcuts to get you from one area of the world to another. So like you might kick down a ladder that leads down to a bonfire that you were at before. So now when you save at that bonfire, you can bypass all those tough guys by just going up the ladder, and you're right where you are. It's the most well-designed game. I could talk about it forever. I'm going to stop there. It's an incredible game. Play it, please. Yeah. If you like games and you're not turned off by hard games, play Dark Souls, please. Yeah. The original is the best.
You don't like 2 or 3?
Love 2, love 3. The original is the best.
Okay.
Bloodborne, close second. Worth playing. Not as hard as Dark Souls.
I've actually never beat the first Dark Souls. I got pretty far.
It's so good, man.
Never beat it.
All right. What do you got for me, Dan?
Braid, indie game. Jonathan Blow,
Yep.
Number None, the developers, Jonathan Blow's company, 2008. Love the Mario games. I feel like most of the games I probably put here were platformers and side scrolls. I just love those games so much. But kind of like we were talking about Earthbound and even Dark Souls, how a lot of the games we like kind of take a genre and turn them on their head.
Right.
I feel like Braid did that because it's very much. All right, Jonathan Blow must have been a very big Mario fan because a lot of it is you feel like you're playing a Mario Brothers game.
Well, before you get to any spoiler stuff, let's start out by just saying the way the game is played is it has a rewind mechanic, right?
Right, you're collecting puzzle pieces.
You're getting puzzle pieces that fill out this big puzzle that gets you into the next world.
Right.
It's like Banjo-Kazooie, like almost. But you're getting these puzzle pieces through platforming, but a lot of times the platforming looks impossible. But what happens is you hold the trigger or whatever, and time rewinds, including you.
Right, and so does all the enemies. So
And
there's
all the
certain
enemies.
ways to...
So sometimes it's almost like the swapper, where you want to get, like sometimes there'll be a puzzle piece up here and you don't know how to get it, and there's one enemy that starts here and walks to the right? So you're like, okay, I'm here, the guy I need to jump on is here, I can never catch him. So what you do instead is get ahead of him, rewind it, he starts here, you're right there, you jump on his head, get the puzzle piece. It's super
Very cool.
Very smart. Jonathan Blow also made The Witness.
Witness, one of the best games of all time.
My
as well.
favorite game of last year, actually.
Yeah.
I
Me too,
absolutely
actually.
love that game. But Braid, the mechanic of rewinding time is super cool and a lot of fun and very complex. And when you get to the later levels, you're like, I just can't figure this out.
It's tough. Yeah.
But once you do, it's very rewarding. And then let's talk about spoilers for Braid.
Well, what I
because
love...
this is the big thing about Braid. What makes it not only a cool gimmick, but a awesome game.
Exactly.
Is because of what?
So through the entire game, after every level, right, you're treated to these storybooks, and you get these sort of tales, and it's hard to kind of piece together.
It's like storybooks.
Some sort of, okay, somebody lost someone, somebody did something wrong, it damaged your relationship, and this entire time is very much like a Mario game. You're trying to save the princess.
Yeah, even you get to the end and doesn't it say...
You get to the end of one level, it says, whoever, Tim I think is the character's name,
Tim.
Princess is another castle. Like,
Right,
definitely it's a Mario
super riffing
reference.
off Mario, yeah.
And at the end, spoilers.
Yeah,
at the
spoilers
end,
again. I know we said it already, but...
You find your princess, and you're going after the princess, and she's being chased by this terrible, terrible guy, and you're trying to get to her because you love her, and you're trying to save the princess. You get to the end, the whole time mechanic sort of messes with you, and you start going back in time, and you start to notice that you're not meeting up with the princess. You're chasing
the one
the
that's
princess.
been chasing her. So you haven't been trying to catch her from the bad guy. You are the bad guy.
You are the bad guy.
You're
and she's
chasing
running
her to capture, and
she's running away from you. And when that happens,
it was a really, really cool ending. Really cool twist.
And
Those of you that didn't play Braid, you can get it on Xbox Live or PS3 or something. And it's well worth it. Well worth it.
I think if you're like me and you like side scrollers, you like platformers, I think other than playing a Mario game, this is the best that you can get.
It's very good.
It's just
and
so
like I
well
said,
done.
the time mechanic, the rewind, just really, really interesting.
Oh man, I love that game, and I played it at the right time too. I think I got into it just as like I needed to get into that.
Cool.
It's just very, very good.
Yeah, man. All right, so next for me, I'm going to talk about Persona 4, which is a game that came out in 2008, but it only came out on the PS2 at first, even though it was 2008.
Okay.
So the PS3 had been out, but Japan a lot of times will do that sort of thing because they have the player base in the previous console. Persona 4, one of my absolute favorite games of all time, but what I especially like about 4 is the style of it. It's super stylish. It has like a lot of cool graphics across. It's a JRPG, much like Final Fantasy that we talked about earlier, Final Fantasy VI. But the thing about this is you're basically this group of teenagers that get together and, long story short, they go into a TV in order to go to the other world, right? So they're in there fighting all these monsters because there have been killings at in their real life, Japanese town. So everyone's like gossiping in high school. But what's great about this game is it has the good JRPG mechanics, the turn-based, different elements for different characters. Like, it's very, very JRPG. But what's great about it is the high school stuff, because it's really well done. It's like you have social links with people. So you have all these different characters that are in your group, and you want to... It'll be like, oh, what do you want to spend your time on after school? So, like, you go to school, you might have, like, some little, thing about your teacher teaching you, and then it'll be like, what do you want to do after school? And it's like, you can ask this girl out on a date, you could go spend time with your friend, you can go into the TV and fight monsters to try to make progress.
Do homework.
You can do homework to get smarter, you could do, you could do your, like, job, like, you have, like, a part-time job that you can do to make money. So it's like you're balancing all these things, and constantly different people are like texting you and being like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Do you want to go out today? And you're like, oh, come on, man. I don't want to. I got to go into the freaking TV. It's like, but all right. Like, you feel guilty. But it's so good at like eliciting that response from you because it's just really well written.
Yeah.
It's just a well-written game, and all the characters are great and memorable. I love Persona 4.
Cool. Very, very cool. Very cool.
Real quick. Persona 5, very good. Not as memorable. I can't quite figure out why. I don't know if it's because I've done it before or if it's because...
Persona 4, your first experience?
Persona 4 was my first Persona. Then I went back and played 3, which was good. Not as good. But 5, man, I couldn't...
Really?
I love it. I played 30 hours of it.
Okay.
It just doesn't have that little thing that made me love Persona 4. It might just be a different time, different place. I don't know.
Interesting. Persona 5 is definitely one of my favorite games of the year. I definitely... Yeah.
It's a great game, but...
Fell in love with it.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
What do you got there?
Very cool. My next one, Red Dead Redemption, 2011, Rockstar Games.
Excellent game.
Grand Theft Auto games never did it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Grand Theft Auto as a cowboy somehow just did it for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's cool about the premise is you're this guy, John Marston, and he was part of this rough and tough kind of gang, and he's sort of trying to redeem himself. Redemption. He's trying to redeem himself. And the government's saying, all right, well, you need to take down all of your former gang members, and you need to do all this stuff for us. So he's sort of a pawn to the government, and he's doing that in order to get his freedom so he can live his life with his wife and son, and just all the shenanigans that you go through. You can, I've never played a game where you're actually just a cowboy, You can just ride on a horse for hours or go into a saloon and play dice.
Yeah. What's awesome about Red Dead to me is that the side quests are consistently interesting. You meet these different characters that are like crazy, or you meet these, like, there's just a lot to do that's fun to do. You know what I mean? Nothing feels like, oh, I have to go do this. Like, everything is enjoyable, and the story progresses. It has really good pacing, except for in the Mexico area. A little lull, but it has good pacing across, and what a lot of people love about the reason it's so popular is because people like Grand Theft Auto.
Mm-hmm.
I've loved Grand Theft Auto games in the past. They don't really do it for me anymore, but people love Grand Theft Auto. So Grand Theft Auto, like you said, as a cowboy, people love it. It gets the people in, but when you say it's one of your favorite games of all time, it's because it has a good, heartfelt story.
Yeah.
And especially in the back end of that game, without spoiling it, there's a lot of really interesting things that are done with, like, perspective and characters dying. Right. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
It's a super well done game. The story is incredible.
And you gotta love the character. I mean, John Marston's just sort of a character that you just sort of, he's a bad guy, but yet you relate
heart of
to
gold.
him. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
the bad guy with the heart of gold.
He's
and
awesome.
You just sort of, through his story, you start, oh man, like, the government gives you a bunch of things that you have to do, and you're like, like, come on. When can I see my wife? When can I see my kid? And you feel bad for him. You just want to see him win. You just want to see things go right for him.
It's super interesting as a setting as well, because it's not your classic. Well, it is like classic Western type of style, but it's happening at an interesting time where they like really touch on like the technology that's like transforming their way of living, and like that old West is starting to fade away. Like it really plays around with that stuff in a nice way, and Rockstar, they may make GTA that I'm not a huge fan of, but they know how to write stories, man, and they know how to set a tone. They're very, very
100%,
good.
100%, definitely.
Yeah. All right, and last but not least for us today, Dan, I would say last but most, to be honest with you, Super Mario World.
Favorite game of all time.
1991, Super Nintendo, one of, if not the greatest game of all time. All the Mario games play it well, right? But nothing is quite as perfect as Super Mario World. Like, this game has the way that it can be so, like, happy and vibrant, the colors, the music.
Those SNES graphics still hold up today, 100%.
But though it does something that those other Mario games didn't do, even though they're all fantastic, there's something about Super Mario World where it just captures everything that you want in a platformer. It gets super hard at parts. Some of those levels are really crazy, but man, it is super fun throughout the whole game.
I can safely say that is, out of all these games that we've gone across, that is the one game that I can replay start to finish over and over again. I probably have at least, I can't even count how many times I've played that game.
I definitely grew up playing it a lot with my dad.
Yeah.
Awesome game.
It's the one game that my parents actually played.
Yeah. A lot of
it's that
people.
good, yeah.
I just think Super Mario World perfected the platformer.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen anything top it since,
Still
to be
holds
honest
up.
with you.
Still
As
holds
far
up
as a
beautifully.
2D side-scrolling platformer, Super Mario World is the cream of the crop. It's the
I
best one
agree.
out there.
I can safely say it's my favorite game of all time.
The gameplay and Super Mario Brothers 3 is an incredible game, and a lot of people say it's their favorite
Most
Mario
people say
game.
that that's the greatest Mario game.
It's incredible. It had some secrets with the world, the warp whistle, stuff like that. But Super Mario World, the way that it did its secrets, it felt like there were secrets all over that game.
Yeah.
There were secret exits to maps that made areas accessible that you never would have thought when you're looking at Overworld. If you look at it without the secrets, and then you look at it with the secrets, like secret stages and stuff, it's just incredible. You find these keys and you bring them to these spots and it did so much for the platformer. It was like a transformative game for the genre, and it is so iconic. Like that music, but everything. It's so good. It is definitely one of my favorite games of all time.
It's just if there is such a thing as a perfect game, to me at least, to me that is a perfect game. There's nothing I would change about it.
Yep.
It's Super Mario World. It feels like a world.
It does.
There's just
Travel
so many
across,
areas. It feels like you are in a world. And
It's
I
incredible.
love Mario 3.
Yep.
I love Mario 2. I love all the Mario games. Yeah. Super Mario World is the one that I go back to.
Me too, man.
Over and over again.
Me too.
I know each level like the back of my hand. Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm tearing up. I love it so much.
So, we started with Super Metroid. We ended with Super Mario World.
Super games.
Couldn't think of a better order to put them in. I guess this does it for our show. I just want to give a quick shout out. Thank you to our producer, Shelby.
Shelby the man.
White. Man behind the cameras. He is a genius and we love him.
Love you, Shelby.
Yeah, I guess that's going to do it for our first episode. Keep an eye out. We're going to be doing this weekly. I guess that pretty much does it for us, Dan.
Yeah, thank you for listening to us. We don't know what the heck we're talking about, so thank you very much for listening to us just have fun and just talk about the things that we love. Good friends, good company, good times, good conversations.
Yeah, thanks. You can find us next week at Circle Back Podcast. And see you later. Peace. What's up, guys? It's Dan from Circle Back. I'm just here to let you know you can find everything that we do at circlebackgaming.com. If you just want the podcast, we're on iTunes. If you just want the video, we're on YouTube. So catch us either place.